know exist. Take a perk and talk it and see. Money swollen like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a belly to take on my hater. Nothing better. Put on the road, I just spit. I know we got $1 million. The devil, that shit ain't not cheaper than
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Deku Helps His Best Friend, Peter Parker. Smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The first test, 50-meter dash. Ida Tenya did well, no surprise. 3.04 seconds using his quirk, engine. We'll have to see how he does in other events. Shouta made a mental note. Suitsuyu got a 5.58. Considering her partner, she wasn't bad. Uraraka Achako got a 7.15. Thanks to using her quirk on her clothes. Creative, but she has used her quirk on her entire body to be more effective, without getting as queasy too. Her partner, Mishirao Ajiro, got a 6.91. Room for improvement, could strengthen that tail of his. Aoyama Yuga was a bit of a peacocky pratter mouth, but he used his naval laser well enough during the dash. 5.51 seconds. And Ishido Mina is in great shape, being right on his tail and passing with a 5.40. Testing their quirks to their limits allows him to see their room for growth. That will always be tied to how they utilize their abilities. Next up, Midoriya and Bakugou, students 17 and 18 on his chart. They started in Turbo. Bakugou was racing down the lane, the blasts from his hands propelling him to a 4.13. Impressive, fits with the film he watched of Battle Center A's practical exam. Midoriya not so much, 7.02. Well, at least he was in shape. Last ones, students 19 and 20, Parker and Yaoyorozu. Peter got to the staring line after seeing Izuku look after Bakugou leave. He looked down at his jumpsuit, seeing Aizawa standing at the far end with the robots that measure their speed. Back home, he had to lag. To purposefully fail is to not draw eyes about his powers. He looked to the side, seeing the taller dark-haired beauty. Goodness, Liz may have been super cute, but Yaoyorozu Momo was so hot, she filled out that gym on. Wait, don't stare, think, focus on the run. Now, he no longer has to hold back. No longer having to worry about living a double life, hiding his identity and abilities. Go plus ultra, as Mr. Aizawa put it. Let's do our best, Yaoyorozu-san. Let's hit it hard and hit it fast. Peter offered a smile, looking at as the girl turned. Yaoyorozu returned it with a small one and nodded. Likewise, woman, a few words. Okay, no biggie. MJ was one too. Well, she was a girl of many words. Just a lot of snarky ones. He got down onto his hands, feet propped. He then heard a loud thumping noise and beside him, he saw a moped, and Yaoyorozu got on it. Wait, is that even allowed? Did she just make it on the spot? Never mind that, don't hold back. He can go all out now. Runners on your marks. The robot shouted out. They got set, ready, and the gun fired. Peter raced, going as hard and as fast as he could, and before he knew it, he was across with a skid. He looked back, and just saw Yaoyorozu finish behind him as she hit the brakes, looking at him with wide eyes. The robot chimed, 4.23 seconds. Then the second chime, 4.90 seconds. Alright, next test. Let's move it, people, Aizawa shouted. Peter looked at his hands. He had to fake the runs at time, but now, 4.23 seconds. He let out a laugh, smiling. This is just the practical exam all over again. Time to have some fun. You were not joking. You are fast, Yaoyorozu confessed as she got off the moped, and Peter perked up and blushed. Well, I did say let's do our best, right? He added, and the girl chuckled. You weren't kidding either. Did you conjure that scooter from another dimension or something? Not really. I made it on the spot with all the parts and chemicals and electronics required. It's a part of my quirk, creation. You did pretty well yourself. Come on, let's move on to the next event. You said it. Peter offered his hand with a grin. Time to properly introduce himself rather than him learn names from the name tags on the desk. I'm Peter Parker. I'm the guy who sits behind you, by the way. He shrugged, offering a nervous grin. Yaoyorozu blinked, and then offered a soft smile as she took it. Yaoyorozu Momo. It is a pleasure to meet you, Parker-san. The same for me, Peter replied, and deep down, he was overjoyed. He's talking to the most beautiful girl in mush people, Aizawa said, and the two teens jumped and began to jog to where the rest of the class was mingling as they made their way to the gym. Shouta looked at the score on his phone. Ida got first, no surprise there, then Bakugou in second, and Parker third, and Yaoyorozu fourth. But her versatility and creativity, as expected of a recommended student, He's never gotten one in the last few years. She's a shoo-in for sure. As for Parker, guess he doesn't need that suit after all. That was all physical power alone though. Nothing too special, I guess, he thought as he saw Peter walk with the students towards the gym. Second test, grip strength. Peter looked down at the handheld device. Objective was simple, grip as hard as you can to measure it out the highest score. Okay, here goes. He saw many other students gripping theirs, that one Sato Rakido being allowed to eat some cupcakes for his quirk. He got a sugar high thanks to his quirk, sugar dope, and went over 700 kilograms. He noticed some students gather around Shoji Mizo, with nearly 540 kilograms from his gripping. Peter bit his lip and looked at his. He gripped as hard as he could. Go all out, like what Mr. Aizawa said. He has to keep reminding himself that this is a hero school, not like back home. He heard a beep and looked down. 999.99 kilograms. Ew, Mr. AI I mean. Peter paused, reverting back to Japanese. Aizawa-sensei. The black-haired man lazily looked over as Peter showed the device's results. He then looked down at the phone. Is there a stronger grip monitor or? You're good. Just put it back, Aizawa stated as Peter nodded. Okay then. Well that's a lot of nines, Mina exclaimed as she looked over, about to turn hers in when she saw Peter's device. Huh? Someone beat my mark. The muscular Sato walked over, no longer in his sugar-induced craze. Well that's cool, he said, impressed. Ooh, yeah, Peter laughed. I guess I did. All this much attention. How did Mr. Stark handle all of this? Did you actually get 999 kilos or did the machine break? Mina mused. Kirishima finished his and checked the score. Break. I bet he went beyond that. Seriously, you did more than Sato or Shoji. He slapped Peter's back, and the boy blushed. Nice one. Thanks. Just doing my best is all. The boy from Queens replied, doing his best to avoid the simmering glare from Bakugou, who was gripping his device over and over. Izuku was looking at him with awe, before looking at his own in dejection. And here I thought we wouldn't get another All Might. Shout mused as he looked at the score after Parker and the rest of the students turned in the devices. The score on his phone was unreadable. Zeros across the board. Yet the device read 999.99 kilograms. His strength, his speed, his equipment from the practical exam. All the devices were turned off, except Parker's and Yaoyorozu's, because he broke the damn machine by his grip alone while the girl summoned a clamp and kept applying pressure until the machine too broke, which was understandable. And on top of the feeling of being watched, Shouta turned his head, and peering from the windows high above the gym was Toshinori Yagi in his All Might form. He noticed and slinked back out of sight. Shouta narrowed his eyes. Parker's becoming more of an anomaly the more he showed off his skills, and All Might is snooping on him. Did he hear of his track record and failing many students during his tenure at UA, and yet decided to check on the one class that has someone like Parker? He altered the score, adding the note saying enough to Parker's and Yaoyorozu's zeros. On to the next then. Third test, standing long jump. Parker cleared the sandbox with ease. No surprise there. Only a few others managed to do so as well, including Ada, Bakugou, Aoyama, and Todoroki, who scaled the jump using their quirks. Yaoyorozu managed to conjure a javelin and used it to get air and distance. Very impressive crop so far. Fourth test, repeated side steps. Parker aced it again, going at incredible speeds without any of the long wind-up that Ada has to do. Got on top, with only Bakugou behind him in time and reps. Fifth test, ball throw. So far so good. Everyone's been taking their tests and using their quirks in predictable ways. Some have shown creativity, but that's par for the course. The few class geniuses who can apply these go on to thrive, as do those with unnatural talent. Todoroki Shoto has been doing alright on his end, getting above average marks using his ice quirk. Pity he isn't using his fire ability for some reason, but his ice has carried him well enough for the events that mattered. Bakugou Katsuki was top 3 easily in utilizing his quirk to complete the exercises. His explosion can make him fly over short distances, and the combat purposes can be applied to any scenario. Aggressive and abrasive he may be, but talented he is in spades. Yet Peter Parker was acing this, and Shouta was beginning to become more convinced that there's more to this kid than meets the eye. He was number 1, well, so far. But if he kept this up, he should tackle the rest of the tests fine. Hell, he'd have to forsake his teaching career to fail him at this point. Then again, his logical ruse is working and ensuring these kids are busting their humps and using their heads to use their abilities in creative ways. Many of the students applied that principle with the ball throw, some going far, others not so much. Thankfully, this event was going by fast, and now they are at Uraraka Ochako. Shouta saw Uraraka throw her ball and it kept going. And going, and going. Expected, but at least she had the idea to utilize that. So there's something of a brain behind that dollish face of hers. Phone came out as infinite, and Shouta showed it. The entire class yelled infinity. At once, they really shouldn't be shocked by this. All the girl did was use her head. And then there's the dead last, Midoriya Izuku. It was like seeing a watermelon decompose over weeks. Only replace weeks with minutes and watermelon with Midoriya's composure. The boy's self-destructive quirk had yet to be manifested, and he was going by on paltry physical feats alone. Without a doubt, he's hopeless. A fish out of water. Shouta saw him try to calm down, ready to throw the softball. And the glow of his arm. Not happening. Shouta didn't blink as his scarf and hair began to wave as if he was underwater. The ball plummeted a mere 46 meters. Midoriya was befuddled. He doesn't belong here. I erased your quirk, he elaborated, earning Midoriya's attention as he froze, and Shouta focused his quirk, erasure, on him solely. That stupid entrance exam should be revised and changed if it allowed someone like you on these grounds, he growled, and Midoriya didn't seem to take his stance on UA's entrance exam, more focused on his goggles around his neck. My quirks was erased. Wait, those goggles. Your Eraserhead, the erasure hero. Well, hopeless he may be, but he knows his homework. The rest of the class didn't know about it, which is fine since he doesn't like the spotlight. In fact, he does everything he can to avoid it. Going underground is what he does best. As for Midoriya, he'd be a smart student, but a hero, maybe in his wildest dreams. I saw it, how you can't control your quirk. You'd just be incapacitated again if you used it. Shouta pocketed his hands, hoping for a helping hand. He sneered, glaring down at him. Midori shook his head. And no, it's not like thaw enough. Shouta used the scarf and had it wrap around the green-haired runt to pull him in closer. Whatever the outcome, your quirk would have made you into a liability. A deadweight to those who you are planning to save and those who you work alongside. Shouta remembered of that man who was eavesdropping them. He's going to have to talk to him to stop it with this. This is irritating. Once upon a time, a certain hot-blooded hero saved over 1,000 people during a disaster and it made him legend. You have that same reckless altruism about you as he did. But you're useless if you can only save one person and only one person alone. He narrowed his eyes. Midoriya Izuku, with that power of yours, you cannot become a hero. Todoroki can with some nudging to use his fire. Bakugou can be a hero with some refinement and coaching. Parker absolutely, although he can use some common sense pointers and not be as bumbling at times. But Midoriya, absolutely hopeless. He let out a sigh and pocketed his hands, his scarf twirling back to normal around his neck as he walked off to give the boy some space. He closed his eyes. God, that feels so good. You got your quirk back, so give it another go. Let's get this over with. The students began muttering about themselves, all about the boy. Bakugou seemed to be like him, anticipating that the kid will fail no matter what. Hey Midoriya, Parker called out, waving his hand. Do your best. Well, least he has one supporter. Shouta finished applying some eye drops, a much-needed relief for his quirk and for what little sleep he gets, and stared at the green-haired boy. Either way, he doesn't belong here at this school. Not one bit, he seems to be muttering. Midoriya is rearing back to throw at 100% and ruining his arm and being a deadweight for the rest of the tests, or 0% and just flop on his face. What will he? Wait, what? The glowing is on his finger, SMASH, and the ball rocketed out of his hand like a cannon, sailing high to the gasps and awe of the class. Shouta went to his phone, inspecting the score. He didn't utilize his full power to his arm or hand. He concentrated it to his fingertip the moment the ball was about to leave. 705.3 meters. Sensei. Shouta looked up, and Midoriya was grinning, even with tears in his eyes, and gripped his hand, the one with the broken index finger at that. I can still move. This kid. The black-haired man couldn't hold back his grin. The awe of what had transpired. This kid has a brain. Honest-to-God creativity and intellect. To utilize that self-destructive power for maximum efficiency and minimum drawback. The focus to concentrate such a power to a small point for perhaps multiple uses. He wasn't expecting surprises, and Aizawa Shouta got one. A pleasant surprise to be sure. Heck, in past prior entrance exams he's never been this giddy before. Well, guess he's not hopeless after all. With that head, and maybe with the right teaching and control, he may become a hero yet. Awesome, that's a hero throw if I've ever seen one. Uraraka shouted with glee. Holy crap, that's awesome, Parker gasped in awe. It flew out like it was fired out of a cannon. Impressive, but his finger appears to be swollen, Ida pointed out, adjusting his glasses. He's hurt regardless. But hey, you know the saying. Kirishima added. No pain, no gain, right? Hell, he got even higher than Bakugou. He's second only to Uraraka. Parker had enough sense to damp his enthusiasm and take a closer look. Midoriya's finger was red and swollen so badly it looked like something out of a cartoon. Oh yeah, his finger looks like it's broken. He shrugged. It's a lot better than his arms were though. If he can power up just his finger, he could use his power a lot more. Start small, work from there. Shouta scowled. They were missing the point. Midoriya's improvisation was impressive, but he had still managed to hurt himself, and badly enough to need medical attention. Not much, nothing Recovery Girl couldn't handle, but enough to cause trouble on a mission, or in a fight if Midoriya found a way to use up his fingers, like bullets in a pistol. But Parker was getting warmer. He has something of a brain too at least. If Midoriya could master his new quirk, enough so to not hurt himself, it would serve him well, very well. But he wasn't there yet. Not by a long shot. Shouta glanced back at the class, who were staring at Midoriya in awe and surprise. But none of them looked half so surprised as Bakugou. No, not surprise. Not mere bewilderment or confusion. The boy's face, already built for a permanent scowl, was set in utter, brain-frozen astonishment. Then it was gone, replaced with something far worse, far more fitting for what Shouta had seen of Bakugou's personality. Rage. Infernal, homicidal, carpet-chewing rage. The rage that only a shattered ego could unleash. What the fuck? Bakugou charged, his quirk blasting him along. Explain yourself, Deku. You lying snake. Shouta sighed. Nothing to be done. Muttering irritably to himself, he readied his capture scarf and focused on the blonde. He flung out the scarf, snatching Bakugou instantly, only for Parker to tackle Bakugou and held him, taking off right after he saw Bakugou rage towards Midoriya. He was fast. He grabbed Bakugou's arms as he held him, forcing them out and away from him, where his explosions could not reach. He would have tackled him to the ground had it not been for the scarf. Get off me, redshirt, roared Bakugou, struggling under Parker's grip and the scarf. I'll kill you. What's your problem? Demanded Parker. All he did was throw a damn ball. Shut up. You don't know a damn thing about me. Fuck off. Bakugou's hands writhed and aimed his way, but no explosions came out, much to the blonde's surprise. What the? My quirk. This fucking scarf. That's enough. Shouta hissed as Bakugou snarled as he struggled against the scarf with Peter also in its thrall, glaring at Shouta with wrathful eyes. What? Why is your scarf so damn strong? You got this, Aizawa-sensei? Parker asked. Yeah. You kinda do now actually, hehe. He avoided his head to avoid a backwards headbutt from the seething blonde. He let go and walked back, watching Bakugou struggle under the scarf's embrace and not Peter tackling him. Yes, although your contribution was unnecessary, Parker. As for the scarf, it is a capture weapon, Shouta explained. It's made of carbon fiber and a rather special metal alloy which I'm not going to tell you about. Now stand down. The last he barked like a drill sergeant, glaring hard at Bakugou. The boy tried to glare back, snarling like a mad dog. Shouta's seen worse. You really don't want to make me use my quirk, he added for effect. It gives me serious dry eye, and I'm running low on eye drops. He said that last sentence low and dark. A second passed, and the blonde finally stopped struggling. Shouta called back his scarf and closed his eyes, deactivating the quirk. You're wasting time. Whoever's next can step up. Midoriya took the distraction as his cue to leave. Parker hurried over to join him, as did Ida and Uraraka and a few others. Bakugou glared after them, his gaze hot with bitter, burning hatred. Good grief, why did he have to get the hard cases every year? Couldn't Vlad take some of them? Couldn't he have some nice, normal students for once? A class with no dark pasts, murderous rivalries, or mental cases. He knew the reason. With a quirk like his, he was the best qualified to handle any trouble, at least without killing or maiming anyone. He scanned his itching eyes over the crowd of students. They were showing signs of talent, or at least some of them were. If anything, he was being lenient in only expelling one. This class could stand to lose at least 5, like Hagakure, Siro, and others like Jiru or Koda. The mouse would complain, but the couches in his office were divine anyway. Not Parker though. Shouta could see how the others were looking at him, and it was no surprise. First on the practical, and outshining almost everyone in every category. Bakugou was his closest peer in terms of results, and even his luster was looking dull these days. The American stood, loosening up his arm and glancing down at his hands. What was going through his head? Whatever it was a distraction. Shouta threw Parker the ball. The kid caught it without even looking. Impressive spatial awareness. Anytime you want to throw it, Parker, Shouta called. The boy flinched and nodded. Shouta looked down at his phone. Time to see what he can do. Katsuki Bakugou was annoyed. No, not annoyed. Annoyed he could cope with. Annoyed he was used to. Annoyed was a daily occurrence. He was annoyed with mom. He was annoyed with riding the bus. He was annoyed at his old junior high. He was not annoyed. He was outraged. He was pissed. First, fucking Deku of all people made it into UA. That alone was enough to make his blood boil. But then he somehow managed to throw the ball further than he did. He had put everything into that throw, and yet Deku had outperformed him. Deku, it was wrong. It didn't make sense. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He was just Deku. Powerless, worthless Deku. A quirkless ant. Had he hidden it for all those years? Had he just pretended to be a quirkless? But then why? What could he gain from everyone thinking he was a total freakish loser? Bakugou shivered as his mind ran wild. Was Deku mocking him behind his back? Had he been mocking him all this time? Was this some plot to make himself look good and Bakugou look stupid? That lying little snake. He played the long con and Katsuki fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Like a fool. Like a loser. Bakugou clenched his fists, gritted his teeth. All those crocodile tears. All those wimpy speeches about heroism. All those offerings for help. It was all just a cover for his goal. To rise to the highest level and surpass All Might. And he, Bakugou, was just a stepping stone on that road. Worse than a liar. A goddamn hypocrite. And there was Parker, that irritating, stupid-looking foreigner. The one who stumbled around like some kind of idiot, yet somehow got first on the practical. How the hell did he get in? He had cheated. He had to have cheated. If not, the judges were clearly out of line. They must have been foreigners too, letting one of their own into what was supposed to be an elite Japanese school. That or they were blind, insane, corrupt, or smoking something during his performance. Any of those made about as much sense. One way or another, he didn't belong there. He was a foreigner, a fish out of water, going where he had no business of being. Aizawa threw the ball, and Bakugou almost gaped when Parker caught it without even looking up. How the heck did he manage that? It couldn't have been his peripheral vision. The angle was wrong. Was it reflexes? And that strength? When Parker had held him down like that. Anytime you want to throw it, Parker, Aizawa said. The extra looked away sheepishly. Not like Rivera. Like Puig. Okay. He muttered lightly in English. Bakugou could just make it out. Rivera. Puig. The fuck are those? Parker wound up his arm. Corked his entire body ... and threw it. Like a baseball player throwing from outfield to home plate. Putting as much torque as he could. A single blast of sound and force washed over Katsuki and the extras as the ball sailed through the air. Its trail had nothing on his, it just flew further, and further, and further until they could barely see it. Aizawa turned around and displayed the number. 921.5 meters. Are you fucking kidding me? There's no way. That's impossible. How did he get that high? Katsuki blinked, but the number remained the same. 921 meters, a full 200 ahead of his own score. His jaw dropped open, his eyes as wide as plates. The extras behind him cried out in surprise. Wow, that's strong, said that tape dude. That's awesome. The invisible girl chirped. Well, he got first in the practical I was in, so it's not too surprising. Octopus arms added with his arm tentacle mouth. And here I thought I was going to be the strongest. Big lips and muscles mused. UA really is full of surprises. 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 Parker had just blown everyone else out of the water. Even Gravity Girl couldn't compete. He was like ... A mini All Might. He had a mini All Might in his class. Katsuki struggled for breath. His lungs felt like they were full of liquid concrete. There was no escape, no denying what he had seen. The American was stronger than him. With nothing but his own raw strength, he beat out his explosion. His physical feats surpassing him. Was that first place in the practical not a fluke? Katsuki clenched his fist and ground his teeth. No, that wasn't it. That couldn't be it. He was nothing but dumb muscle, switching to English and fumbling through conversations when flustered. Stick to Japanese since you're in Japan, you ignorant jackass. And his quirk didn't have the versatility of Katsuki's. He could apply it to everything that this red shirt couldn't do and more. He could fly. He could fire explosive blasts up close and from range. All he could do was be the most watered-down form of his idol. Nothing more, nothing less. He didn't even care if that rich bitch just made a bazooka to fire out the ball and double up on Parker's score. She's like Gravity Girl, a cheater. Enjoy your time in the sun while you can. His snarl became a devil's smirk. Fine, a challenge, a worthy obstacle for him to overcome in order to get to the top. All Might faced his challenges with a smile on his face. He would do the same. Because when I surpass you, I'm gonna relish knocking you off that fucking ivory tower of yours. Just you wait. Peter Parker. The next few tests passed without much excitement. Not that Peter was complaining. Anything beside the fiasco with Izuku's ball throw would be fine for him. The only one complaining about the seated toe touch was Izuku due to his finger. Then came the sit-ups, passed with ease. And finally the long-distance run. It was like running through the golf course back home. No way to use his webs, and having to go on foot like everyone else. Tenya and Bakugou blasted in front of everyone else with their quirks, while Peter trailed behind them. He kept up a faster pace than he remembered ever using in gym class, and once more he finished without even breaking a sweat. Tenya gave him an impressed nod, and Bakugou sneered. The latter looked drenched in sweat and exhausted. But Tenya and Peter, while sweaty, were holding up just fine. What was his problem? First it was a glare after hearing Peter got first. Now he looked ready to rip his head off just for doing well. Well, he did tackle him, but he was trying to stop him from assaulting Izuku. What was he supposed to do? And besides, why did an asshole like him want to be a hero anyway? He'd been anything but hero material that day. He'd even tried to attack Izuku, and for no good reason. And why call him Deku like that? Cut name maybe. Insult. If you're done standing around, the final results are in. Mr. Aizawa called out. Guess this is it. Whoever was in last place would be kicked out. Peter looked back and saw Izuku collapsed on the floor after his run. Everyone walked around him. Peter walked over and gave him a helping hand up. Bit awkward when Izuku couldn't use his good hand. But he got him up. Thanks. Anytime. Keep your head up. Peter said with a grin. I'm sure you did well. You did on that ball throw, he said before he turned towards the results shown from the holo projector on the teacher's phone. 1. Peter Parker. 2. Yaoyorozu Momo. 3. Todoroki Shoto. 4. Bakugou Katsuki. 5. Ida Tenya. 6. Takoyami Fumikage. 7. Shoji Mizo. 8. Ajiro Mishirao. 9. Kirishima Ijiru. 10. Ashido Mina. 11. Uraraka Achako. 12. Kota Koji. 13. Sato Rikido. 14. Tsuyua Sui. 15. Aoyama Yuga. 16. Shiro Hanta. 17. Denki Kaminari. 18. Jiru Kyoka. 19. Hagakure Toru. 20. Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. Oh yeah, the expulsion rule for being dead last. Peter bit his lip and took a deep breath. Midoriya hadn't done well on the other tests after the ball throw, and for good reason. He hadn't had time to go to the nurse's office and get his finger fixed. He bit his lip, awaiting Aizawa's declaration and ousting of. Oh yeah, that part of me expelling one of you. I lied. Wait, what? Peter yelled in English, Aizawa's words snapping him back to reality. I mean, what? He switched back to Japanese. But no one seemed to have noticed his faux pas. The whole class looked utterly stunned. And as for Aizawa, that had to be the biggest troll grin Peter had ever seen. It was all a logical ruse meant to bring out the best in all of you. He elaborated with a chuckle and a toothy grin. Everyone in the class gasped. Wow! Ida, Uraraka, and Midoriya in various shades of pale and surprise shouted out in unison. It made Peter shrink away a little. To the side, Yaoyorozu sighed. What? You took him seriously? It was obvious a lie if you actually thought about it. Peter blinked, looking to the side, gears turning. Then like a microwave chime, he snapped his fingers. If we hadn't had that threat hanging over us, Peter mused, I wouldn't be able to assess the best you could do. Aizawa explained as he rubbed his eyes. Urgency brings out the best in others, showing their true colors. Anyways, he sighed, turning around. We're done here. Your syllabus and documents about the hero course are in your classroom. Give them a look when you can. Oh, Midoriya. The green-haired boy perked up as the dark-haired man handed him a slip of paper. Go to recovery, girl. Tomorrow's going to be just hard if not harder after all. Be at your best, okay. Midoriya nodded dumbly as he took the note, and Peter smiled, walking up and patting the boy on the back. Hey, you did your best and you didn't get fail right. I say that's a good day. He saw the look on the boy's face. He was still stunned. Still, mean trick by Aizawa-sensei, but I can see where he's coming from. So he's gonna be my teacher. Peter didn't like his methods at first, but he can see why he did it. He couldn't shake it. Parker's powers weren't the big question mark, no. Speed, strength, agility, many strong heroes acquire these. Yet, the stamina he displayed when he had the students run themselves ragged wouldn't raise much of an eyebrow if he was just a strong individual. It was the other factors outside the apprehension test. That suit for one. The web slinging must be a part of it. The experience he displayed while fighting the faux villains. But, specifically that suit of his, that would fall over his head like sand and form glowing blue eyes, formed giant metal spider legs. It was a technology Shouta had never seen before. Parker was a riddle wrapped in an enigma and served in a dorky, good-natured smile. He had mysterious and powerful technology at his disposal and combat experience that most third years could only dream of. But he was still just a young boy. A boy starting here in NUA as a freshman, just around the same time as Aizawa, you big fat liar. Shouta emerged from his reverie. It was hard to think with a voice like that bellowing in his ears. Figured you were watching me all night. You were peeking in around the halfway point, weren't you? Shouta droned, hands pocketed as he looked up at the muscular titan of a man. The blonde Goliath laughed. Perceptive, aren't you? And I tried my best to be as sneaky as possible. It appears I have much to learn. He grinned. He always grinned. Anyways, a tactical ruse. You do know April Fool's was a week ago. You expelled an entire class of freshmen last year. Yep, Shouta replied. You toss aside those with zero prospects without batting an eye, and yet not go back on your word. The symbol of peace snapped his finger. Could it be that one boy, Midoriya, you can see his promise too, don't you? Shouta sighed. So, he brings up the dead last from the tests. Could he be dodging him preemptively? You like Midoriya, and here I thought you had an eye on the foreign kid. All Might perked up. Oh, what about young Parker? Unlike Midoriya, he came here to UA with some of the best grade equipment I have ever seen, and he came within a hair's breadth of breaking your record during the practical exam. And his abilities. He turned to face All Might, and the giant flinched a little. Are a lot like yours. All Might. Wait. Yagi tilted his head. Why are you talking about young Parker? He has loads of promise and potential with a great heroic spirit to boot. And I would assume that he would ace your exam with flying colors. You'd have to try to fail him, considering your track record. But, back on track, what? Shouta let out a loud sigh of frustration. He was getting cranky, tired, and planning out the year was going to take time. He missed his sleeping bag. Midoriya isn't as hopeless as I thought. That's all I can say. And as for Parker, well, he turned back, giving All Might a light glare. He has potential oozing out of him. Yet he's a free spirit with a good heart. And that equipment too. Unusual? No. All Might still looked confused, as if he couldn't put 2 and 2 together to make 4. Or was really bad at answering direct questions. Eh? What do you mean? I am still confused about young Parker. Fuck it, he was playing dumb. Fine, forget it. We'll talk about this later. Shouta snarled and stalked off. He had too much to think about, especially with this new class. Endeavor's son Todoroki Shoto, enough said. Yaoyorozu Momo was looking versatile indeed. In addition to her intelligence and creativity, she will be a powerhouse with enough knowledge. The Ida line was still going strong, in the form of their youngest son, Bakugou Katsuki, the finest marble Shouta had ever seen, but in need of a lot of polish, not to mention an attitude adjustment. And Midoriya Izuku was showing a little promise, if only because he seemed to have a brain, more so than most of last year's failures. If he could use that brain and get his quirk under proper control, he would go far. And then there was Peter Parker. The more Aizawa Shouta thought of him, the less he liked it. Most teachers would be appalled at the idea of investigating their own students. It was a breach of trust, not to mention professional ethics. But most teachers weren't Aizawa Shouta. Tomorrow, Mike and All Might were in charge of the class of kids. That would usually give him time to rest. Not this time. I'm going to find out who you truly are, Peter Parker. Your powers, your experience, your equipment. It's a combination I have never seen. And I'm going to get to the bottom of it. His eyes darkened as he retreated to the UA Academy building. He'll keep this on the down low and to the side. For now, he needed to do some research and fine-combing of Parker's background. Peter had to be honest with himself, he was getting annoyed. This world had a lot of cool stuff. The hologram projectors, the faux villain robots, and hundreds of heroes with equipment that wouldn't feel out of place in Mr. Stark's museum. And maybe even in his R&D labs. Then he found himself in a normal locker room. Peter wasn't expecting the royal treatment, but this was UA, the best hero academy in all of Japan. Couldn't they spare a little money for repairs, like the hole that lead directly to the girls' changing room? Ooh, girls, he called out through the hole, not looking into it, just speaking at it. There's a hole here. I'm gonna ask the janitors to clog it up, okay? Some pervs left it here, and I'm looking away from the hole, mouth closest to the hole, but eyes not from it. So, I'm not peeking or anything. He could hear the gasps of a male behind him, and a few from the hole. I'll clog it up with some paper and notify a faculty member at once. Thank you very much, Parker-san, called a voice in reply. It was Yaoyorozu. Anytime. He glanced into the hole, just in time to see it fill up. The act made him smile. To think Yaoyoro, Momo would reply back. How could Yao? Kaminari Denki wailed in despair. The American rolled his eyes. Oh, hush and grow up, Peter muttered as he returned to his locker. Yeah, every world had its pervs and weirdos, but come on, seriously. On the plus side, Bakugou had came and left faster than anyone else, which was cool with Peter. The further away that he was from that guy, the better. What his beef was with Izuku, Peter had no clue. But it didn't mean he could be a jerk to everyone because of it. How could someone like him become a hero? If this was back home, he would have been called out by the teachers. Then again, his quirk. With a sigh, Peter threw on his shirt and got the feeling that someone was looking at him. He turned around to see Izaru looking him over. Hi, Kirishima-san. Izaru-san. What do you prefer? Peter offered. The red-haired boy grinned at the attention. Peter didn't know what he was talking about until Izaru lifted up the sleeve to Peter's arm. You eat raw iron for breakfast or something, and whatever you like to call me. You've earned it in spades. The boy blushed under the red eyes. Work out, Peter offered weakly. Izaru chuckled, a shit-eating grin on his face. He stepped back and left the American to finish changing. In the back of the room, Denki banged his head against the locker. It's not fair, man. Ida's got legs, Sato's a mountain, and then there's Parker, and he destroyed a parting gift from those who came before us. Why is the world so cruel? Ajiro did his best to help, patting the distraught boy with his tail. Peter didn't know what he was watching. Is he going to be okay? He asked Koda. The quiet lizardish-looking boy shrugged, and Peter sighed. That's fair. Ignoring the anguished cries of his classmate, Peter finished changing. He quickly made his way out, where he found Tenya standing looking at a wall-mounted map of the school. He had a serious air about him. You all right, Ida? The tall blue-haired boy glanced back, grinning a welcoming smile. Yes, Parker said, I'm quite all right. I'm only memorizing the layout of the school for future reference. Peter tried not to look as confused as he felt. Wasn't the point of a map so that you didn't need to memorize it? He had seen such maps posted all over the school. There was no way anyone could get lost. Then again, there was no great harm in it either. He had done it himself, after a fashion, navigating through Queens and New York by the landmarks. Okay, good luck. See you tomorrow, Peter offered. Ida took the awkwardness in stride, waving Peter off before returning to his study of the map, hand on chin, mumbling to himself. Peter left him to it, turning down the hall, only to step to the side as a hand reached for his shoulder. The American looked to see Izaru, clad in uniform, not even blink at Peter's dodge. Do you have eyes on the back of your head? Peter started, scratching the back of his head nervously. No. Cause that would be freakin' sweet. Izaru interrupted, flashing a grin and flexing for no reason. Talk about winning the lottery. If you say so. Hey, don't be nervous, man, Izaru said, slapping Peter on the back as the pair towards the exit. You crushed the quirk test. First day here and you're already at the top. That's what I call staking a claim. And don't mind Kaminari. He'll get over it, maybe. Peter didn't answer him. How could he? He wasn't trying to stake anything. He was just doing what he was told. Before, he couldn't do a thing with his power. He had to act weak, let his books fall out of his bag and stumble when someone bumped into him. Like everyone else in his school, he had to act normal. Here though, being super was the normal. They didn't even blink at the list of things that the spider bite allowed him to do. Mr. Aizawa looked tired more than anything, and Bakugou was a can of worms that Peter definitely didn't want to open. Again, still, hearing someone as hype as Ijiro shouting his praises was weird. Got to say, Ijiro continued, that was an awesome 360 Aizawa-sensei pulled on us. I was on the edge for the whole test. He gave Peter an expectant look and Peter nodded. Why, yeah, it was wild. Sure was. I was seriously thinking that Aizawa-sensei was going to kick one of us out for a second there. I must apologize, I guess I should have said something. The two boys stopped in their tracks, because while the world was filled with superheroes, there was one thing that was guaranteed to stop a high school boy in their tracks. A pretty black-haired girl that was obviously talking to them. Yaoyorozu Momo walked up to the two, a cute apologetic smile on her face. Her eyes filled with gratitude as she settled upon Peter. Peter felt his face heat up. Oh hi Momoyazu. Sorry. Yaoyorozu-san. How can he botch saying her name? Damnit Peter. He was so calm and natural during the tests, but now he's back to being the shy guy he was back home. He jerked, rubbing his arm while Izaru sniggered. Yaoyorozu blinked and then giggled. It's alright Parker-san. You truly outdid yourself during the tests today. I thought you had it figured out too. No. Well, I had a feeling he was only saying that to light a fire under our butts, but I thought he was serious on the explosion thing. But he seriously looked like he was ready to fail a few people, so I was worried. The black-haired beauty blinked. I see. You were worried about the others more than yourself then. Peter nodded, scratching his arm. Yeah, in a way. Don't worry about that Yaoyorozu-san. It all worked out. At those words, he saw something soften in her eyes towards him. Huh? Others over yourself. Manly indeed, Izuku said with a nod, arms crossed. All the same, Peter couldn't help but feel like that was just luck. Aizawa seemed like he enjoyed every second of watching Peter, and the others squirm at the thought of being expelled at making the bottom of the list. Especially Izuku. The teacher looked pissed every time that the green-haired boy went up to the plate during each test. Then the ball throw happened and something happened. He could hear the disdain and disgust fade into pure joy and surprise after Izuku completed the test in third place. Well, either way, it was still the first day, and they all got through it. Worked out. I was scared to death. Peter turned and saw Uraraka Ochako rushing towards them with a relieved look on her face. The brown-haired gravity girl huffed and took a deep breath to compose herself. Sorry about that, Yaoyorozu said apologetically. I probably should have said something. Yeah, not all of us are smart enough to work that out, Izuku points out. Yaoyorozu looked down, apologetically. But it was no big deal, Peter added quickly, nudging Izuku in the arm a little harder than usual. I mean, Aizawa-sensei did that for us to learn. And we learned. That's the job of a teacher, right? Izuku barked out of laugh. Even Uraraka hid a giggle behind her hand. What are you talking about? It's not like you had anything to worry about, Mr. First Place. Peter groaned. Did that seriously have to be a nickname? American, foreigner, even redshirt was better than that. Unfortunately, didn't seem like anyone there agreed. Yeah, Parker-kun, you really kicked butt out there, Uraraka praised. I mean, you made that ball throw out line like a cannon shot from a tank. Or when you looked like a blur in the sidestep. The American groaned lightly again, his cheeks pink. Oh, by the way, I know Americans call each other by their first name a lot, so do you prefer Parker or Peter? Whichever is fine by you. Whatever's comfortable. Peter bit his lip as he saw the black-haired beauty again approach. Not the words that I would have chosen, but you performed admirably, Yaoyorozu agreed, crossing her arms. You belong here, without a shadow of a doubt. Now all this praise. Now Peter's face was heating up for a completely different reason. He really shouldn't be getting complimented just for following directions. He took a step back and blanched. In the distance, he saw the clock. 10 after 3, he was going to miss the bus. Thanks guys, but hey, you look at the time. I'll see you tomorrow, gotta catch the bus. Peter called. Peace, he yelled in English. With that, he turned and all but sprinted down the hall and out of the school. He pushed the door open and didn't stop running. On the first day of UA, the students were treated to the sight of a foreign student literally sprinting out of the hero course. The only one who didn't was Midoriya, who was too busy in his own thoughts to hear Peter coming. The poor guy jumped out of his skin when Peter rushed past. Hey Midoriya, bye Midoriya, Peter blurted out while fast. The spider-themed hero in training saw just enough to catch Izuku standing in place, awkwardly raising a hand in a wave. As soon as he was out of the grounds, Peter was met with the bus coming to a stop. Slowing to a stop, he let out a sigh and then heard himself laugh. World of superpowers, hero professions, and many other oddities. The first thing that he's worried about upon leaving school was missing the bus back home. Huh, guess it wasn't too different from high school after all. He sat down inside, looking as he heard the bus clink. Looking at his phone, he got some texts from you saying she will be working late and be sure to get some phone #S from your classmates, okay? Always pays off to have a friend or two. Phone num. Oh crap, I forgot to get numbers. Peter muttered to himself. Ah well, he'd get it tomorrow when he was back in class. The brown-haired wall crawler allowed himself to smile. High school may have its warts and typical negative stuff, but not having to hold back, being able to go all out and be who he truly was without hiding behind a mask. It was all so liberating. Did you get into your class, Peter? Came a text. It was from Pony. Peter smiled and typed back. Yeah, did good. Hugh, I did great. Hopefully we can have lunch together, although I should have lunch with my class. We'll see how it goes. See you tomorrow. He couldn't wait for tomorrow. He what? Peter slinked further into his seat, hoping beyond hope that the cushions would overtake him and protect him from the angry face of his guardian. Sadly, that's not how life or physics worked, and he was left looking at Yu's wide and livid eyes. The anger died slightly as she popped another sushi roll in, but it remained. After he got home, Yu demanded that she and Peter go out as a celebration for him having finished his first day. And when he said demanded, Yu demanded like a terrorist holding hostages. She even glared at him when he mentioned the cost and muttered something about needing to treat himself. So when she asked him where he wanted to go, he chose the local sushi bar a few blocks from the apartment. Good food on the cheap. It was what he was used to, even after living in this new world for under a year. Though Yu didn't look too happy about it. He had no clue why. He was saving her a good chunk of change, trying to turn the conversation away from money. He went over the day's events, which included the quirk assessment test, which led to this. He was trying to get us to go all out. He wasn't going to expel any of us, Peter said in defense of his teacher, and it worked. You should have seen them, their powers are amazing. He smiled, poking at his food as he remembered all of them. A tail straight off of a monster kangaroo, a belly button laser turning into the Hulk by eating cake of all things, and the raw power of Izuku's throw. Of course, there were some bad apples. Bakugou was a jerk, and that's one of the kinder words Peter could use to describe him. But at the same time, there's Mina, exotic, exuberant, creative with her acid. And Momo, smart, cute, an awesome power, kind. Peter, you're blushing. Peter jerked up from his thought, biting his lower inner lip. You blinked, then something sparkled, and suddenly Peter really didn't like that look in her eyes as her smirk turned predatory. So, you said, a wry smile spreading over her. Panic raced through Peter faster than any bullet. He knew that look. It was the same look that Aunt May had when he so much as mentioned Liz back home. He inched back, but the booth refused to bend yet again. You giggled at the attempt, soaking up his embarrassment for all that it was worth. Meet any cute girls? No, Peter said on reflex, only to feel a pang of guilt when he remembered Momo, Achako, and Mina. Well, he stammered, there's a few in my class. Ooh, you purred, eyes practically glowing with interest as she ate another sushi roll. Any of them stand out? Peter nodded, well, and Momo-san is really nice. You was taken aback. She probably meant it as a joke. Teenage boys fawning over the cute girl in their class just to get some fun. Given how he was in the hero course, Peter was bound to run into someone that checked his boxes. So why with the surprise? You're already on a first-name basis. You pressed. A knowing smile split her face, and Peter felt his face heat up. His hand was on his chopsticks instantly. This is really nice sushi. Can we talk about that? Impossibly. Yu's grin was like the Cheshire Cat now, and Peter looked on in desperation. Please, Peter begged. You eyed her little ward. Seconds stretched to minutes, until finally you cracked. She guffawed, eating up the teenager's embarrassment with a tear in her eye. Peter felt his shoulders slump. You're mean. You waved him off, trying desperately to compose herself. I'm sorry. She stopped and took a long drink of water. It's just, she sniggered, you can crush robots. But no, girls are what get you. Boys, they never change. Peter felt the table call to him, begging him to smash his face upon its surface. It might hurt now, but it would save him from this. You wasn't saying anything new, after all. MJ pegged him and Ned as losers almost every day. Hearing you say it made him wonder what caused girls like Liz to say yes to him asking her out in the first place. And why MJ seemed to talk a lot and send playful insults, as if she was a cat. Was she flirting with him and he didn't notice? Was he cursed? Was that it? How's Pony doing? Peter perked up at that. Finally, a conversation that wouldn't end with him making a fool of himself. Oh, she's great. She got into her class, 1B I think. You frowned a little but nodded along. Good for her, she said taking a bite of sushi. She'll do great. I hope so. According to her, all their teacher did was put them through an obstacle course for training. The no expulsion caveat went unsaid. Yeah, that's what happens. You get the wrong homeroom teacher, and life can be hell. You explained. Heard a lot of bad rumors, so she lucked out. No surprise there, Peter thought. With his quirk and the capture weapon around his neck, Aizawa basically had the entire class under control at a literal glance. Class B probably had quirks that didn't need a quirk nullification ability on hand in case problem children went awry. Like Bakugou, and maybe himself. Well, he doesn't consider himself a problem child. At least, maybe. But that's behind you. Just focus on studying. Do your best, and you'll make it out fine and dandy. And then, you'll be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man slinging with me side by side daily. She took a sip of sake, downing the saucer in one sip. Peter nodded. Yeah, that's all he needed to do. And don't forget to get those girls' numbers. Peter spat out his drink and snapped to you. Why? She let out a snort. So I can see that face more often, you snickered. At that moment, Peter lost the battle, and let his head fall to the waiting table below to the sound of Yu's witch-like cackle filling the booth. Some patrons gave them an odd look, but Mount Lady could give less of a hoot. Coming back to the doors of UA was far less nerve-wracking the second time through. Even being a superhero school, at the end of the day, it was still just high school. The bus ride was quick and forgettable with his music in hand. Apparently, certain classical bands were the same. The old songs that Aunt May loved listening to like Lynyrd Skynyrd. So when Peter pushed open the doors, there's nothing. A small spring in his step, but a familiar one. He's back. No aliens, no space donuts, just him and high school. All of its simple problems, stupid homework, and silly drama. That last one was going to be a pain back home. But at the end of the day, it was safe. A few seconds of embarrassment was better, it just was. And even if it felt like it wasn't, a single fact kept the spring in his step. He could use his powers. He still couldn't get over that. Months of hiding it, and then suddenly he's top of the food chain. How did that happen? And to him of all people? He had no clue, but he might as well get used to it. As much as the praise got to him, it was the new normal. A better normal. And he liked the sound of that. Well, at least normal in the day is good. At night though, on to better things. The second he thought that he turned the corner and immediately jumped out of the way of a green-haired girl. Unfortunately, she wasn't nearly as fast and stumbled forward, yelping in surprise. She caught herself at the last minute as her hair seemed to move, catching her fall, but sadly, her books fell to the floor. Peter caught her sigh as she bent down. "Hey, let me get those," he said, putting his bag aside. His hands moved on autopilot, grabbing all the books, stacking them and handing them back so fast she only got one back in her hands. Now that he could get a good look at her, Peter had to admit she was kind of cute with how her hair was branded like 100 vines. And she had a soft face, elegant and without impurity. If Momo was the top model and Ochako the girl next door, then this girl was like a choir girl. "Thank you," she said in gratitude, her voice soft and melodic. "Hey, it's kind of my fault." Peter chuckled nervously, handing back the books. "I wasn't paying attention and caught you by surprise." When he was sure she had a handle on them, he smiled. "I'm Peter Parker, by the way. Shizaki Ibara, and I am from Class B." Shizaki answered. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Parker-san." Peter hid his surprise by reaching for his bag. "Hey, you know about me?" "Yes, your friend Pony is in my class. She speaks very highly of you in what small interactions we have had, or when I am in her proximity." That made Peter pause for a second. Oh right, she and Pony were in the same class. That made more sense. What was a little strange was what she actually said. It took a second, but it finally clocked. Pony spoke highly of him. That's really nice of her. It brought a grin to Peter as he adjusted his bag. "Yeah, she's pretty great. Knew her when we both came here to Japan to brush up on our Japanese, or for me, learn from scratch. She seems rather fond of you, if I do say." Peter blinked. "As she's a really good friend. I wouldn't have improved on my Japanese as much if it hadn't been for her teaching me some of the harder stuff." At this point, his head doing its best impression of a bobblehead. However, that stopped when he felt a tingle behind him. "Yes, best have it keep it that way, Parker-san. We don't appreciate the advances to our class since we are rivals." Peter turned around to see a platinum blonde blue-eyed boy with a soft smile accompanied by yet another cute girl with flowing black-green hair and sweet little fang popping out of a big smile. Behind both of them is a massive guy with silver hair and grit that made it look like he was flexing with every step. Thankfully, the final group was an orange-haired girl that looked incredibly girl next door. She had a firm hand on the blonde's shoulder, something that he was blissfully unaware of. A quick tug from her made the blonde stumble back a little. "Be nice," the orangette demanded with a soft but terse tone. The blonde laughed it off, shrugging and holding his hands in surrender. Seriously, what's with Peter and blonde guys these days? Like Kendo. The girl, Kendo apparently, pulled a little harder. "Don't you Kendo-chan me," she said. "You don't go around speaking for all of us. Who knows, he could be a nice guy." She looked up to Peter. "You are a nice guy, right?" Peter slowly nodded. "Well, why wouldn't I be?" A reptilian smile spread over the girl next to her as she sniggered. She stalked towards him, eyeing every inch and sending a few thousand warning bells through Peter's head. It was like an exaggerated toe drag step as she prowled towards him. Why they were telling him to watch her hands, he didn't know, and he didn't want to. She stopped her impromptu search of his face, and the smirk only widened. "Gotta say, they make them real nice where you come from, don't they?" "Come again." "What?" Kendo and the silver guy shared his question, throwing the girl strange looks. The blonde boy looked aghast like she'd just offered to kick a puppy. The girl ignored them all, giggled at his apparent misfortune. "Shishishishi, I'm just messing with ya, lighten up." She gave him a soft elbow before offering her hand. "Takage Setsuna," she said. "Class B finally got the pleasure to meet you in person." "Oh well, it's nice to meet you," Peter said quickly. "I'm Peter, but I think you already know me." "Well, the American boy, that is. Who doesn't? Rumors spread about you quick how you got in first on the practical." Setsuna winked and pointing to the blonde. "This bundle of envy and resentment right there." "Excuse you," the blonde yelled in defiance. "Is Mono Manaido," Setsuna finished, earning a gasp of betrayal from the blonde. "He's a decent guy, but his pride and desire to be on top can be a bit gratin." Moving on, her finger turned towards Kendo. "As you probably guessed, his handler is Kendo Itsuka, Class B's resident one-san." The orange-haired in question girl waved. "Hello there, Peter," Itsuka said in accented English, making Peter let out a small laugh of relief. "Big sister of the class, you just accepting it?" He replied back in his native tongue. "Someone's got to." Itsuka smiled, eyes closed with a bashful toothy grin. "I hope you do the same for Class A, okay? We are all here to become heroes after all. I picked up Class A and become heroes. Did I miss anything?" the steel-haired guy asked. Setsuna shrugged. "Nah, you're." She let out a snort, giving him an elbow. "Solid." And she sniggered a ton. Itsuka puffed out her cheeks in a suppressed laugh. Nito snorted while the taller boy just looked confused. Ibara, who had been silent, tilted her head. "Is this a joke that went over my head?" Setsuna took the entire thing in stride, glancing back to the final member of their party. "And finally, the big guy is. My name is Tetsu of Class 1B. Heard a lot about you, Parker. Nice to meet ya." Peter and everyone around him winced slightly at the volume. Did this guy have any idea of volume control? If he did, everyone else hadn't seen it, because they shook it off like it was nothing. Nito took the chance to step forward with a sly smile and a glint in his eye. "As my good friend said, we are the star students of Class 1B, and we know all about you, Peter Parker, or Class 1A's Ace, or the first year Phenom." Setsuna rolled her eyes. "Of course he says that with Honuki not around." "Who is that?" He stepped forward, and Peter felt like there was supposed to be dramatic music playing in the background. This guy was so extra with his advance. On the plus side, he wasn't a massive jerk about it. Still is. Acting like a small jerk though. Pony talked about me, I heard," Peter said. "And can tell. She may have to put a lid on it. So many people are knowing about him now. First all that pays yesterday and now this. But did you hear about what she said about you?" Nito asked, cocky grin overtaking him as he had a hand on his head. "She said you were the top of the practical exam." Itsuka rolled her eyes and looked at Nito with the deadest of deadpan stares. "Be that as it may. Know this," Naito continued, "just because you got in first doesn't mean that you'll remain on top forever. As the old saying goes, no king rules forever. Your position as ace is but temporary. A spot one of your classmates, nay someone other than your class, not to just become ace, but the best of all first years. Maybe even a student from Class 1B. He is a ranter," Setsuna intoned. "Does he breathe or pause?" Peter asked with a quirked eyebrow. "Where are these nicknames coming from?" He gave no approval on that. "I don't think he has a pause button inside him." "Yes, soon," Nito continued, grinning like a lunatic. "A student will rise from 1B to take that spot away from you and drag you down to the rest of the mascok." The boy's eyes went white, and he slouched forward, falling face first in front of Peter, out like a light. He slowly looked up to see Itsuka frowning at the prone boy, lowering her hand. "Fears the pause button." Setsuna snapped her finger at the orangeette with a grin. And Peter felt a jolt through him. Why did he feel sick at the sound of a snap? Note to self, catch him next time, Itsuka whispered. "Well, we'll see you around, Parker-kun. Take care and excuse Monoma-kun for his theatrics. If you'll excuse me." Without a word, she threw Nito over her shoulder like a bag of flour. And if that wasn't enough, she just started walking. Setsuna snorted, and Tetsu gritted his teeth. "Damn it, one hit, and he's out again. Guy's got to work on his endurance." Peter felt a bead of sweat run down his neck. "Again? Is he going to be okay?" Peter asked. Itsuka stopped glancing at the prone form on her shoulder. "Probably," she guessed. Peter raised a finger. "That's..." he started, only to drop his finger. "Not very helpful." "Don't sweat it," Setsuna said, throwing off the hero's concerns. "He's a hero. He's got to get used to taking the L's sometime. Might as well start early." "That's not why we're here," Shizaki said from the back. She really was a woman of few words. "Wait, Ibara is still here." He'd completely forgotten about her. She just stood there with her books with the most straight-laced expression that Peter had ever seen. Didn't look like anything in the past few minutes fazed her. Speaking of her, what the hell is up with all the girls here? Was there a meeting that everyone had to be cute or a bombshell? Japan was filled with them so far. With the conversation that he and you had last night, not that he was complaining, Nuope, he's going to stop right there. He fought off the blush going to him. Think of anything else. Don't be an idiot. Make friends. Don't embarrass yourself by thinking of. Yo, Pony-chan. Itsuka smiled. Peter choked again. He turned and saw his friend standing at the edge of the stairs. She looked just as confused at Nito and Itsuka as Peter did. Ignoring them, her face lit up when she saw Peter. "Oh, hey Peter. Hey Pony, good morning." Peter stammered, trying to get a handle on his thoughts. Pony's own smile, however, stayed strong, beaming like a warm spring day. "Are you excited for our first day?" "Yeah," Peter nodded. "It's probably going to be really interesting." Pony beamed. "Totally, it's going to be so fucking awesome." Peter blanched, and Itsuka looked horrified. Nito's body congealed, and a snort came out from his unconscious self. A snort of laughter. Pony-chan, she called. My word, such vulgarity. Haibara added. Tetsu just blinked. Well, what's wrong with an awesome day that's flipping awesome? He asked, censoring himself. With everyone's stares on her, Pony's smile faltered, her ears drooping. She seemingly shrunk back, her confidence shattering in an instant. Did I say something wrong? Peter's chest lurched, she sounded so sad. Oh god, it feels like he just slapped a puppy. When they graduated from language school, did she pick up some bad habits or phrases? No, he said quickly in English. It's just, we're not supposed to talk like that, we have to be super polite. Really? Pony asked back in her native tongue. I was told it was a good way to start the day though. Itsuka's eyes narrowed. Who told you that? She was able to pick up on the conversation. Setsuna stood cross-armed with an amused smirk, while the gray-haired boy and vine-haired girl stood looking confused. Nito did. He gave me some pointers on how to speak some easy slang. Pony pointed at the blonde over her shoulder. As one, 4 pairs of eyes locked on the prone form over Itsuka's shoulder. They all caught Nito in that foreign sentence. A second passed, then 2, and suddenly, Peter felt the urge to run away from the orange-haired girl. She smiled a sickeningly sweet smile. She let out a soft sigh. It's nice to meet you, Parker-kun. But if you'll excuse me, Tetsu-kun and I need to fix something. The big silver-haired brute blinked, scratching his head. We do. Yes, Itsuka reinforced, making it clear it was a command and not a request. We do. Peter could see the gears turning in Tetsu's head. Then, like a light bulb went off, everything fell into place. Oh, yeah, all right, he said. Sure, excellent, Itsuka added with a bright grin. And with that, she walked off, her assistant right behind her. If you'll excuse me. Have a good day at school, Parker-san, and thank you for the assistance. Haibara bowed lightly and followed. The dark green-haired lizard-eyed girl turned towards Peter and walked around him. Welp, that's enough for one day. See you around, cutie, Setsuna winked. Pony's eyebrows rose up and her mouth dropped. Before she can say anything, the lizard-eyed girl reached out and grabbed the Texan blonde before she could object. Poor girl nearly tripped in her grip and quickly managed to turn and wave down the hall. I'll see you at lunch, Peter, Pony called with a wave. And just like that, Peter was alone in the hallway with absolutely no idea what the heck just happened. He shook his head. It's nothing special. It was only one thing. He needed to focus on class and everything that comes with it. He opened the door and, get your feet off the desk. Oh, fuck off. This is what met him. Peter tried not to sigh. Yep, just like high school. Good. And he felt all eyes on him as he entered. Bakugou glowered and glared, while Tenure raised a hand. Good morning, Parker. Morning, Ida. Peter walked past with a light nod as he eyed his desk. Time to settle in. He noticed a lot of people looking his way, and he did his best to ignore them as he sat behind Momo. Morning, Yaoyorozu. Good morning, Parker-san, Momo stated with a nod as the rest of the students began to file in for the day. Peter looked out to his class, seeing them mingle a little before the day began. Someone from here must have leaked out how he got first in the practical. He doubted Nito saw him and Ochako and the camera when he tried to give Izuku points after the practical, so that must mean someone must have told another and then that person told another and like a virus it began to circulate. He took a deep breath and looked at his school supplies. Just make it through. At his prior high school he lied under the radar. Now the spotlight was on him, all for having fun at that. Mr. Stark was always in the spotlight. Got to adapt and, yo Parker-kun, Mina bounded over. Or do you prefer Peter? I know in America you get called by your first name a lot instead of surname, so what do you feel most comfortable with? Oh, well that is sudden. Peter's fine. Do you like Mina or Ashido? Mina offered a big grin. Call me Mina. Getting awfully cozy with others lately, haven't you? Smirked Ijiru who sat close by. Then again, that's how you've always been I guess. And you can call me whatever you want. He pointed his thumb at his chest. A guy like you deserves it after all. Well, thanks for the accommodations, I guess. Peter looked down at the syllabus. So, we have homeroom to start to basically prepare us for the day, then English, math, Japanese, lunch and then hero classes. Really is a school. Guess they want to make sure a kid is educated here first in case the hero profession doesn't work out. Yeah, it sucks, Mina pouted. I wanted to do more hero training, but that's only for after lunch. I understand how you feel, Momo elaborated behind Peter. But, UA, is only doing its job in ensuring we are educated in matters outside of heroism. Who knows, there can be some skills we can learn, as English is a viable asset to learn. Yeah, but our ace here can handle okay. Ijiru smirked. He is from America, English might be so boring you might pass out. Again with the ace thing. First Class B was calling him something like that, now this. Sharp minds enable great cunning. Takoyami cut in, arms crossed and brooding as usual. He must have been agreeing with Momo. Peter laughed, looking up. Well, I know English just fine, but the pronouns and adjectives and all that complex stuff can be a bit complicated. That's his worst subject after all. Math and science are like second nature to him. Sentence structure and verbs and all that junk. He and Ned had a rough time with it back home. Also, it's like advanced Japanese for us then. And how to write in differing characters and dialects. Oh god, the katakana hiragana stuff. He and Pony crammed hard on this back in foreign exchange class. Peter nodded at Mina's assertion, making the pinkette give an affirmative hum. Well, if you need any help, I would be happy to assist and correct you, Momo stated as Peter looked back. I'm sure you will handle a lot of English to start, but if you need assistance on any of the nuances and complexities, I can help as best as I can. The brown-haired boy felt his cheeks warm up and looked away. Why yeah, thanks. I'll do my best to help too if you guys need any help with English and speaking it. Izaru offered a big grin and a thumbs up. Peter saw a bouncing shirt walk across. Oh, I could use the help in English. I wasn't very good at it back in middle school. Hagakure chirped as her gloves were fisted up, but in excitement as she seemed to bounce on the balls of her feet. I could use some pointers as well, if only to improve. The bird-headed boy stated as he looked over at Peter. He looked cross and menacing, but he didn't sound like it. Only brooding. And he felt eyes on him. And on Momo too due to the English advice. Ooh, it's a dat I mean, plan them. He looked over at Momo. We could help together. The black-haired girl seemed to beam at the prospect of helping. Of course, the and Peter-san would be happy to help and oh. Her face turned bright red as she caught herself. Parker-san would be glad to assist, if you wish of course. Suddenly Peter felt nostalgic while Mina barked out a laugh, and Hagakure emitted an ooh in a teasing nature. He could only nod dumbly as Izaru scoffed out a smirk. Totally sweet, he said in English, heavily accented. Now, we should head back to our desks. The redhead stated back in Japanese. Class is about to start any minute now. And everyone got back to their seats, and Peter looked to the window, seeing Momo's eyes there. And then they met, and back to their desks their eyesights were locked. Peter rolling his pencil up and down his desk as he did his best to calm down his heartbeat. Todoroki gazing at him a ton didn't help either. Just say something, dude. You're looking creepy. And class began, with Aizawa not present and present Mike taking over and going over the day, which was elaborated in the syllabus. First was English, in which he playful called on Peter a lot to state out sentences for everyone to repeat it first. And then others were called upon. Izuku was surprisingly fluent, with Bakugou being decent when he spoke in the tongue of America. Takoyami, Sato, and Mina had rougher times, with the latter muttering song lyrics were easier. The best were surprisingly Aoyama and Jiru, with Todoroki being very eligible. Listening to Momo, Mina, and Ochako talk in English was a sliding scale of downright angelic to darn cute. Although Peter can sense an aura of boredom descending upon the classroom. Classes continued. Math was a breeze. Japanese was rough, but Momo made it incredibly bearable with her assistance. And lunch came around. Apparently Yue hired a cooking hero to make some of the finest cuisine, or at least be in charge. Although his face looked super mechanical, Lunch Rush seemed super friendly. He even had a photo of his wife and 4 children by the register. Well, good for him. Before Peter had to spend food for the cheap food, now he can get the best in town. Talk about a deal. And lunch was a fun affair. Eating with Izaru, Mina, and Denki, who seemed to have moved on from the locker room to spare fest. Must have went through the 5 stages of, was it grief or death? Peter wasn't sure. Kaminari Denki did seem friendly, even if a bit envious as Pony joined them for eating plenty of cooked greens as she is a vegetarian. And here Peter thought there was no vegetarians from Texas, but she is part horse. When Peter would go for seconds, Setsuna would be prowling around grinning at him with playful eyes, but not of the friends to all things aura that Mina had or the social butterfly Hagakure was. Rather, she seemed to gaze on him like a cat does with a mouse, wanting to play around, yet observant too, kind of like MJ minus the stone-faced snark. He always had the feeling he was being watched while he had lunch with the others, but he chalked that up to the fact that the first-year Phenom rumors were going about. Oh, and that he was an American at a Japanese hero high school. Well, Setsuna was friendly at least. Pony speaks very highly of her. Ibara, Itsuka, and some Honuki Juzo guy and a Kenbara dude. Maybe he should hang with her more. She has a unique vibe about her considering her lizard-like eyes. Alas, all good things come to an end, with lunch ending and Peter satisfied for the coming hours ahead. Because now was hero training. I have Kuum. yelled a boisterous, mighty voice that made the entire class perk up at the sight. He heard Izuku lean down in front of him. "He's here," he whispered. "Through the door totally normal," declared All Might as he arrived to the door, dressed in his Silver Age red body costume with a blue cape. Everyone in the class was excited. Peter let out a laugh of awe. What he knew of All Might was only from the news, the articles written about him, how he saved hundreds if not thousands of lives during many disasters not just in Japan, but all over the world in safety and relief. He who was responsible for Japan's gigantic plunge in crime rate. The one who helped negotiate peace treaties and agreements between many countries as a mediator and arbitrator. And he did it all with a smile on his face as if it was glued on. The symbol of peace, All Might. Peter's smile was wide. Oh my god, it's really him. He knew he was teaching here, what with his holo projector, but still. This was amazing. He really is teaching here at UA. This is gonna be rad. Zaru pumped his fist. Hero Basic Training, also called Heroing 101. That will be the class that will define you into the heroes you wish to be. The blonde-haired titan of a man posed, reaching into something. Be prepared, for today we will be going into a crucial element of hero training. And he pulled out a card with the words battle being inscribed on there. Battle training. Battle. Peter heard Bakugou mutter that out, almost in utter glee and excitement. Izuku was not as enthusiastic. Training. He finished. Indeed. And for that, you'll need these. And to the wall beside him, compartments began to open up with numbers as all the students was chatting and twittering with joy and glee. The support department created these in accordance to your requests, and to the quirk registry forms you signed before applying here to UA. You will need to wear these. Costumes all right, Mina yelled, and everyone was shouting in agreement and with exuberation. All Might seemed to revel in it as all the students got up one at a time. Peter couldn't contain his grin as he saw them all stand up and get in line towards the numbered compartments to get their costumes. All Might twirled his cape as he prepared to depart. Prepare to change into these and meet me in Battle Center B. I'll see you there, Mr. All Might. The blonde man stopped, seeing Tenya, who was standing in line as Mina and Aoyama got their belongings, raising his hand. I see contents within each box of the 20 compartments for our Setons, but yet, for compartment 19 I do not see anything. I fear the support department must have forgotten about one of my fellow peers. Oh, box 19. No need, young Ada, though your concern and observational skills are noted. All Might waved his hand. Young Peter Parker's equipment was already cleared and he already has it on his person. Peter felt eyes on him. He was the only one in his seat after all. Wait, Parker has equipment? Sato asked. It can't be homemade. UA has some of the best costume making services around, right? Asui mused with a big finger to her chin. Oh, he has one all right. And it's super cool. Ochako beamed out. Peter stood up in his chair, feeling nervous as he knew what was coming. Ooh, Ochako-san. He can fire webbing and sprout-like, totally rad metal legs from his back. It fits his spider motif too. He rocked it when he went into the practical exam with me, Deku-kun and Ada-kun. Ochako looked at him, and Peter blanched as again he felt all eyes on him. He has his own gear. Bakugou growled as he looked at him. Of course. How silly of me, I forgot. Tenya uttered. Todoroki remained silent, but he didn't look surprised. I wonder who made his gear. Hanta mused. But the support department gave it the okay, so in any case, I'll see you all at the battle center. So long. And All Might is gone, leaving Peter to fidget around with his backpack. Yeah, he stated, smiling awkwardly as he shrugged, seeing his classmates get their boxes. I am already good, so no need to worry about me. The brown-haired wall crawler got up and shouldered his backpack and walked outside. Anything to get away from the stairs. He remembered the location of the battle center and he decided to go there first. But he didn't want to leave his friends behind. Peter waited, taking a big sigh. Mr. Stark was always looked at. Be like him. Be better than him. He muttered to himself lightly. Easier said than done. So, that must have been how he got first on the practical. Katsuki grinned. He only got through due to his toys. His power was noteworthy. But at the end of the day it was just dumb and speed. Nothing his raw power of explosion and its versatility can't match. Shoot webbing, spider legs, could be a threat, but if he gets a chance to fight him, with his requested gear, a devil's grin split his face in two as he got his box. The best outcome is to take down the American down a several dozen pegs, or to blast that snake in the face for making him look like a fool for all these years. He gave Deku a glare as he stormed past the line, to finally stomp that ant under his boot, or defeat the strongest person in his class, and reaffirm his footing as top dog like back in his junior high days. Oh ho 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 ho, today is going to be a good day. Katsuki just knows it. And a good day it is. The sun was out as all the students began to file down the tunnel in their equipment. All Might grinned at the sight. Today was their first foray into heroism. Well, most of them, as young Midoriya has a glimmer of experience already, and young Parker has a vigilante report to his credit. Keep an eye on him, Aizawa had said to him before taking the day off to do whatever. He's got too many tricks up his sleeve. His dedication to discovering his class's strengths was commendable, but All Might couldn't bring himself to agree with it. Even if young Midoriya and Parker are in this class, he had to treat them and grade them like he would any other student, just like his teacher did before him. Without all the scary parts, of course. Besides, Parker was instinctively saving others from hazards during the practical exam. It reminded him a lot of himself back when he first started here at UA. Decades ago, as always, just overthinking on things as usual. Young Parker was a hero through and through. All Might reflexively clenched a fist. Get it together, Toshinori. You handle paparazzi on a daily basis. Kids should be a piece of cake. Time to teach. Go plus ultra. Looking good is important, ladies and gentlemen. As they say, clothes make the pros, ladies and gentlemen. And behold, you are the proof. Take this to heart, because from now on, you're all heroes in training. And the students came out, all dressed in their custom costumes. Some looked somewhat normal or plain, like Takoyami Fumikage's dark cloak, Jiru Kyoka's punk getup with her special boots, all the way to Aoyama Yuga's armor and cape, Ida Tenya's custom armor with engine divots by his legs, and Bakugou Katsuki's combat attire with grenade gauntlets, combat boots, and dark mask. Yet the most complex, covering himself head to toe in his costume, was without a doubt Peter Parker as he came out, and everyone in the class gave him impressed looks. Some even gave woes and ahs at him walking past, red with gold and blue, glowing blue eyes and lights on his palm with a bright spider insignia on his chest. The mysterious suit. Yagi had no mind for science. He had what everyone else had. Eyes. Anyone could see that it was leagues better than anything even he could get his hands on, since he didn't file an equipment request to the support department, saying that he already had gear. If David could get his hands on it, he'd probably die of excitement right then and there. Speaking of excitement, young Parker's young peers swarmed the poor boy. Wow, that's Parker, Kaminari exclaimed. I couldn't tell. Geez, it looks like he's covered in metal. Jiru added. He truly is shining. Tres bien, Parker, Aoyama declared as he inspected and gazed all over Parker like an artist would a sculpture. Parker's blue eyes only quirked in confusion. He had some bright red bodysuit when I saw him enter his changing room. Takoyami mused. Maybe it changes color when put on. Does leave little for the imagination, Asui commented, and Ashido, who was busy looking over him, heard the comment and brightened up, her cheeks darkening. I mean, it is pretty form-fitting, but who else isn't? Mine is, Sato declared. How did he even get it on? It's like Jiru says, he's wearing metal or something. The invisible Hagakure said, wait, invisible. That means she's, oh, well, all fine additions. Even if he can hear young Parker's groaning from afar. Bakugou was giving the American a sideways sneer, while Todoroki didn't seem to care, as if he already knew. Shall we begin, you bunch of zygotes? Yagi declared proudly, saving himself and young Parker from some strange thoughts. It's time to begin our battle trials. And he paused, as he set his eyes on his successor, the one who has inherited one for all from him. Midoriya Izuku's costume. Green, with a utility belt, a mask with a wide toothy smile and, oh god, was he copying his hairstyle with those horn ears? Yagi didn't know if he should cringe or if he should laugh. Heck, probably both. You're so obvious, he muttered to himself as he sniggered in his hand. Composing himself, Yagi cleared his throat. Now that everyone's here, it's time for combat training. Sir, young Ida's hand shot up. The boy went for the traditional armored style of his family line. He filled the shoes well. This is the fake city from our entrance exam. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban battles again? Oh, thank goodness for an easy question. Yagi flashed a peace sign. Not quite. We're moving 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain fights that you see in the news take place outdoors, and didn't he know it? Barely took a few minutes before someone with a camera caught him and suddenly his face was all over the news while he was in the middle of a fight. However, statistically speaking, run-ins with the craftiest evildoers take place indoors. Young Midoriya nods. However, Parker flinched. A subtle thing, a small switch of his fingers, but definitely a reaction. Did the boy have more experience outside of the report? Maybe Aizawa's search could have some merit. Whenever he's done with it, But conspiracy thoughts are for later. Parker is a hero, not a villain. There's a class to teach. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret layers. Truly clever villains stick to the shadows. For this training exercise, you'll be split into teams of heroes and villains and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. From the front row, the green bodysuit wearing Asui tilted her head. Isn't this a little advanced? Oh boy, another easy question. Yagi was on a roll today. The best training comes from the greatest teacher, experience. That adage was never truer in hero work. Take away all the quirks and flashy moves, and when you get down to it, the one with the more experience comes out on top more times than not. The number of times where he rushed in thinking that his strength would be enough bit Yagi in the ass more times than he'd care to admit. Part of him wanted to say that, but these students needed to come to their own conclusions, else the lessons would never stick. They will fail, but he will be there to pick them up. However, there's one point that needed to be addressed. But remember, Yagi continued, you can't just punch a robot this time. You're dealing with actual people now. Sir, will you be the one deciding who wins? Yaoyorozu inquired. How much can we hurt the other team? Bakugou asked, his eye twitching towards Parker. Do we need to worry about someone being expelled like yesterday? Ochako asked worriedly. Will you be splitting us up based on chance or comparative skill? Ida asked. Isn't this cape fantastic? Oh god, too many questions. He's on a time limit here, people. GRK, I wasn't finished talking, Yagi moaned. Not to worry, he could work with this. After all, he came prepared. He reached in and grabbed his specially calculated reflexive incident preparation tool. A notebook. Parker tilted his head in confusion. Moving on. Where was he? Oh yes, listen up. The situation is as follows. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile in their hideout. The heroes must foil their plans. To do that, the heroes must either catch the villains or recover the weapon. Likewise, the villains win if they capture the heroes or protect their payload. That was a good explanation, right? An action movie setup with a simple yet productive plan, perfect for the first day of hero training. Yagi glanced around, nodding heads and calculating gazes. They're getting it, excellent. Time's limited, and we'll decide teams by drawing lots. Yagi declared, holding up the lot box. Isn't there a better way? Ida asked. Think about it. Pros often have to team up with heroes from other agencies on the spot. So maybe that's why we're doing it here, Midoriya said, matter of fact. Plus, at the end of the day, we're out there helping people, so it doesn't matter who you work with so long as you help, Parker added. Can't just pick and choose, sadly. He finished with a shrug. Gotta work with the cards dealt to ya. I see. Life is a random series of events. Excuse my rudeness. Ida apologized with a bow. Parker seemed to be looking to the side, deep in thought. But back to Ida. Yes, that's the reason. Yagi totally didn't run out of paper in his notes. He shook it off, keeping up his signature grin. No sweat, let's draw, he declared. One by one the students came up to the lotto box. Team A, Uraraka and Midoriya. Team B, Todoroki and Shoji. Team C, Parker and Yaoyorozu. Team D, Bakugou and Ida. Team E, Aoyama and Ishido. Team F, Sato and Koda. Team G, Kaminari and Jiru. Team H, Takoyami and Asui. Team I, Ojiro and Hagakure. Team J, Kirishima and Shiro. Yes, the odds were in his favor. The balance of power and skill seemed evenly distributed. For the most part. How did Parker and Yaoyorozu get matched up on the same team? Must have been the algorithm. Though young Midoriya and Parker look like they're frozen in place from their partners. Nerves of excitement for the upcoming trials. Throwing the balls in the hero and villain boxes and giving them a good shake, Yagi pulled the balls, declaring, the first teams to be fighting are these guys. He announced, Teams D and A for the villains and heroes respectfully. The surprise on young Bakugou and Midoriya's face was palpable. One looked ready to tear down the entire building while the other wanted to jump in a hole, he was so despondent. Oh dear. Alright, everyone knows their roles. The two teams stay here. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch. The villain team has 5 minutes of preparatory time in their building. Yes sir, the class chorused. With their orders, the heroes in training left the two teams where they stood. As he went by, Parker tapped Midoriya on the shoulder. Good luck, he said before walking off. Midoriya didn't acknowledge it. His gaze was firmly on Bakugou. The explosive genius glared daggers at his middle school friend, only to jump as Midoriya held his ground. And it only served to make the blonde even angrier. Yaga's successor had a look in his eyes that the hero remembered seeing on the beach. Determination. You think they're going to be okay? Peter asked, to no one in particular. Around him, his classmates had crowded into the command center, staring past him at the drama to come. Who? Izuku asked over his shoulder. Bakugou and Izuku. Peter explained. You guys remember how Bakugou reacted to Izuku's throw? The guy flipped out. Didn't you try to stop Bakugou back then? The frog girl Asui asked. Peter shrugged. I did, but I can't do anything up here. Before him stood an array of monitors, each one connected to a camera inside the building, covering the interior from every conceivable angle. They showed only hallways and rooms, empty bite for the enormous fake bomb that was the focal point of the exercise. At least, Peter hoped it was fake. This was a school that counted building-sized mecha among its training tools. He could not assume too much of its restraint or sanity. On one monitor, connected to the sole outside camera, they could see All Might giving instructions to the two teams. So taking all bets, who's gonna win? Denki called out. He grinned. No one else did. I don't think we should be betting on something like this, Momo said, cocking an eyebrow. Come on, pleaded Denki, raising his hands in surrender. I'm just trying to have some fun. While my money's on Bakugou, Izuku declared, ignoring the conversation and jumping in with a flex. That guy's quirk packs a real punch, and Midoriya and Ochako can't do much about that. The difference in power is staggering. Takoyami agreed. That is until you remember Midoriya's quirk. Zero's eyes lit up. Oh yeah, all he's got to do is punch once and it's all over. I don't know. Peter murmured. Huh? You got something to say, Ace? Izuku asked. As one, the class turned to look at Peter. Thankfully his face was hidden behind the iron spider, so they could not see his grimace. That nickname, it was going to stick now, wasn't it? First Nito called him a first-year phenom, now Izuku called him Ace. Well, I probably shouldn't say. No, please continue, Parker-san. Momo placates, offering a gentle, expectant look. I'm sure we'd all like to hear whatever insight you have. Sure enough, he had everyone's attention. Even Todoroki was looking at him with something other than smoldering resentment as he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Okay, how to phrase this? I'm just saying ... don't get me wrong. Izuku's strong. I was there when he took out the 0-pointer. He blew that thing's head off with just one punch. So what's the problem? Hajiro asked. If I remember correctly, you outclassed him in everything during the tests. Yeah, but I don't think I could blast the robot with one punch. If it was me, I probably would have used webbing to stall it or slow it down. There was Ochako to consider. He looked back on screen, seeing the brunette talk to the green hero trainee. When Bakugou had been chasing Izuku, he looked like he was out for blood. Now they were on opposite sides. Peter was really starting to worry. But the difference is that your quirk don't hurt you like Izuku's does, Asui cut in. Peter nodded. Yeah, his arms and legs were beyond messed up. Sure, Izuku can blow them away, but if they block it, or just jump out of the way, he's down an arm or a finger, and they're no worse for wear. It's too big a trade-off. You say that, but Bakugou and Ida have to get lucky upwards of 10 times, Shoji said from one of his creepy mouth arms. Midoriya only needs to be lucky once. Like a defensive boxer versus a knockout artist in boxing. But he could bring the building down. Sato shrugs. The floating set of gloves that was Hagakure gasped. Do you think that'll happen? The sugar giant shrugged. I wouldn't put it past someone like Bakugou. It was sad, but Peter couldn't bring himself to disagree with him. Bakugou was a loose cannon, and this entire lesson was going to give him an excuse to go all out against Izuku. They were on entirely different levels as far as power went, but Shoji was right. Izuku needed only one shot, but Bakugou could fire as many times as he liked, and even one of those was a force to be reckoned with. Being indoors would be more of a hindrance to Izuku than Bakugou. The blonde brute was a jerk and the only one of the two that could launch an attack without breaking down a wall. From what he could see, neither of them had a tech advantage either, unless there was something to those grenade gauntlets that he had missed. You're sure taking this seriously? Well, it is a class, Peter said. Gyro glanced up at him and shrugged. If you say so, Mr. Ace. The last she said in accented English. Peter groaned and looked at the ceiling, and he caught her smirk in the corner of his eye. Listen, don't sweat it. You belong here just like the rest of us. She gave a thumbs up. I am here. Behind them, the door burst open, revealing the number 1 hero with an actual trail of smoke behind him. How fast was he going? Ah, young Parker, getting the best seat in the house I see, bellowed All Might, just trying to watch. At the order, the iron spider peeled his mask away. The feeling of sand washing over his face that came with the mask was replaced with heat of the climate-controlled room as ooze and always echoed through the room. Wow, that's so cool, Mina cooed. It slinked back like a cobra's hood. Fascinating, mused Takoyami. Did all of that just slink to that thingy at the back of his neck? Asui mused aloud. Dude, you gotta tell me where and how you got your gear. Denki exclaimed. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Peter tried to hide his embarrassment by focusing on the screens, but that stopped with a single gruff laugh from All Might. shying away from the limelight. Young Parker. Is it that obvious? He asked. I've never been so noticeable before. All Might nodded, confirming Peter's fears. The fact alone was almost as embarrassing as hearing the praises to begin with. A few calls of appreciation shouldn't affect him, but they did, and he's getting them in an avalanche. He wasn't Mr. Stark. He didn't deserve their cheers, their praise. He hadn't done anything to earn it anyway. He was just having fun in the practical exam and quirk test. He hasn't busted his hump like his peers had. He doesn't deserve it. Peter flinched as a massive hand placed itself gently on his shoulder. The #1 hero was smiling down at him, but his smile was smaller, more understanding. Take heart, Peter Parker. The blonde giant spoke softly and warmly in English. It was perfect, as if he had spoken it his whole life. Whether you think you did or not, you've earned your spot here. That is something that objectively true. And you are hero material, just like me. Peter had no words. Could he hear his thoughts? The Titan laughed, clapping him on the back playfully. Peter smiled back. He didn't know why hearing it from All Might made it feel okay. He looked back, seeing the class all smile at him, except for Todoroki, who only seemed to narrow his eyes more. Back to focusing on the screens. All right, All Might called into the speaker, speaking in Japanese. Let's begin the indoor combat training. Team A, Team D, the clock starts now. Stepping away from the mic, All Might brought out a small notebook and pen. The goofy side didn't do a thing to Peter's respect as the man turned back. Pay attention, students. Think about what you would do in this situation. What he would do. Peter began to think. Well, to start, if he was a hero, Peter would do his best to find out where the bomb was being kept. If this were real, that would be the villain's only real chip they could be playing unless they had hostages. Finding it would take the most time, so he'd probably swing around the building and see if he could get in through the windows using stealth, and not busting a wall in to make noise. Unless they were stupid enough to put the bomb in a room with an open window, Peter would have to chance it by finding a window where he could enter the building safely. Least, that's his thinking. On screen, Izuku shared his thought, foregoing the front door and jumping through the ground floor window with Ochako hot on his heels. The two heroes made slow going down the hallways, an issue Peter didn't see himself having with that danger feeling of his. Without it, Izuku took point, checking behind the corners for any attack. Even so, Bakugou seemingly appeared behind one, rushing the two with a glowing fist that put a hole in the wall. Peter gasped. Did Izuku and Ochako get out of the way? That blast looked like it was going to hurt. Sneak attacks, Bakugou. What kind of man pulls cheap shit like that? Zaru asked through gritted teeth. Vile as it might seem, it's a viable strategy. He's playing the part and acting like a villain. All Might confirmed. A role that Bakugou seemed far too comfortable with in Peter's opinion. The only thing that distracted him was the sight of Izuku and Ochako standing somewhat uninjured in the smoke. The two boys rushed one another, and Peter saw some jaws hit the floor as Izuku grabbed Bakugou's arm, twisted like a dancer and slammed the explosive jerk into the floor. Damn, Midoriya got some moves, Denki whistled. He sure did, and the sight of them was enough to keep Bakugou from going at it again. Then he started talking to someone. There was no sound from the screen, so Peter was at a loss. Hey, what gives? Who's Bakugou talking to? Zaru asked. Can we get some sound with these screens? He's talking to his partner through a radio. All Might explained, pointing out a small blue piece in the kid's ear. I gave it to him before the match started, as well as a floor plan of the building and some capture tape, he declared, withdrawing a roll from the stand in front of him. Once you've wrapped this around your opponent, you've captured them. Within the 15-minute time limit, Momo said. Correct, Mina frowned. Then the heroes are at a huge disadvantage. Aren't we always? Peter asked. Mina cocked an eyebrow at him, and she was only the first. Suddenly he was back as the center of attention. Don't worry, be like Mr. Stark, and it's like All Might said. He had earned his place. He took a deep breath. Well, we're reacting to whatever the villains have planned beforehand, right? They're always sneaking around, planning something so they're, not noticed. Then, how do I say that? They'll always have the time to make a plan or set up a trap in case they get caught. As for, well, us, we've got to go in blind, think on the spot and do what we can with, well, what we have. They don't have to play fair, but gosh, all these eyes on him as they listened to him. He looked to the side, bashfully. We're the ones that are being trusted to do something, and that's saving lives. That's what heroes do. The botched speech earned him wide-eyed stares. Zaru grinned while Momo flashed an appreciative smile. Peter quickly looked away, but in doing so, he saw a look different from the rest. Todoroki's eyes, on the other hand, was narrowed into slits. And was he thinking on something or just really hating his guts for some reason? What did Peter do now? All Might guffawed. Well said. Even if the odds aren't in our favor, we fight nonetheless. The hero's declaration was met with a chorus of smiles all around. All Might raised a fist in the air. All together now, let's hear a plus ultra. Noise exploded into the room as everyone joined in the mantra of the school. Peter joined in as best he could, but his arm dropped. He's moving, he called. All Might turned around just in time to see Bakugou rush with an explosive kick. Izuku held his own, blocking and screaming something that makes Ochako rush down the hall. The green-suited hero in training wrapped Bakugou's ankle in capture tape, but he abandoned that the second that Bakugou slammed an explosive fist into the wall where Izuku was. He jumped back and held his own for a second before taking off down the hallway. That gave Peter pause. Why wasn't he using his quirk? In a hallway like that, he could end it with one punch. Peter remembered the way that the zero-pointer went down, how ungodly amounts of force was slammed into it from one point. One punch here at the very edge of the building wouldn't bring it down, and Bakugou would be hard-pressed to dodge something that powerful. Then it clicked. Izuku didn't want to hurt Bakugou. He wanted to win without his quirk or hurting him. Might be something else, but considering how Izuku turned tail and ran off, Peter couldn't help but think he was right, even if only a little bit. Without an opponent in front of him, Bakugou roared, and for the first time, Peter was thankful there wasn't any sound from the feed. That guy's got some serious anger issues. It's kind of scary, Zero said. No kidding. The jerk looked like he could start giving the Hulk a run for his money in the angry screaming department. Hopefully, it didn't get too bad. And the fight raged. Izuku dodged, but Bakugou adapted to Izuku's counterattacks, closing the gap. Peter became transfixed on the scene. Even if he was planning something, Izuku was in a bad situation. Meanwhile, Ochako had reached the bomb room, and she was laughing. Okay, Peter stated, taking in Tenya's posing. Momo sighed. I think Tenya is taking the role of villain too seriously here, she mused, crossing her arms. Bakugou had reached Izuku, and forced him to turn and fight. His face was a mask of murderous rage, and Izuku was little different. Just what had passed between them. What could Izuku have said or done to enrage Bakugou so? All Might, he's raising his gauntlet. He pointed out, I have a bad feeling about this. All Might perked up. Wait, young Bakugou. Stop. Are you trying to kill him? Peter could see the bloodthirsty grin on his face, teeth bared as he pulled and pinned ... and read his lips. He felt his blood go cold. He'll survive, as long he dodges. He pulled, and a fiery blast erupted out down the hallway. As one the class gasped, Peter clenched his fists. All Might called out to Izuku. The past dissipated. Izulu had indeed dodged. Peter heard All Might barked into the radio, threatening to stop the exercise if Bakugou did that again, while Ijiru asked for it to be stopped regardless. And this kid wanted to be a hero. That jerk. No, he's not a jerk. He's despicable. Peter gritted his teeth and balled his fists, glaring darkly at the screen. You ... thug, Peter growled in English. He felt his classmates staring at him, doubtless wondering what venomous curse he had just snarled, for the tone could be nothing else. He paid them no mind. To do such a thing, even when pretending to be a villain, it was too much. Bakugou continued to attack Izuku, blasting him with well-aimed counters, and using his quirk to boost his speed, tossing Izuku around like a ragdoll. Ochako was trying to secure the weapon, despite Tenya running around with it. The students, from Todoroki to Momo, were complimenting Bakugou on his strategy. But Peter could not. He could not stop thinking about that face, that fury in his red eyes. Even Captain America and his group back in Germany had not looked at him so hatefully. Izuku and Bakugou charged, bringing their fists back. Closer and closer they came, and at the last moment Izuku dodged, taking the blast to his face, and fired his glowing arm upwards in a punch. The cameras shook, as did the building, and the feed in the bomb room showed a massive gaping hole, gale force winds whipping around it. Ochako swung a broken column like a baseball bat, firing the debris at Tenya. Tenya dodged, and Ochako leapt across, snatching the bomb from him. They won, Mina yelled. All Might's smile got a bit wider. The hero team wins, he yelled. The class cheered and whooped their approval. On the feed, Izuku collapsed, his left arm mangled and red, his whole body looking as if it had been used as a punching bag. Bakugou stared in horrified disbelief, slumping to his knees. The losing team is nearly unscathed, while the winning team has been put through the ringer. Takoyami mused. They may have lost the battle, but they won the war. Even so, it's not right, Peter hissed, speaking to the ground and at the monitor. He almost killed Midoriya. What's the deal? Why didn't you stop the fight when Bakugou used his grenade blast thingy? That could have killed, but All Might wasn't there. Him. He finished, bewildered. and then he saw that All Might was in the same room as Bakugou, talking to him and comforting him. He's a teacher, yeah, so talking to his students was par for the job. But that doesn't change what just happened. What had occurred during this exercise, even if Bakugou looked like as if he saw his dog get run over in front of him. That's no excuse. None of this was. This was a school for Pete's sake. There was no reason to go in with the intention to kill, even if imitating villainly. That weapon would have killed Izuku if not turned him into char had he not dodged. He gripped his fists and glared at the screen. Bakugou wanted to surpass All Might, to be better than him. Yeah, I'm going to be number one around here. The top hero, like All Might. He smirked darkly as the elevator came to a stop. So if you don't want to die or anything, just don't get in my way. Peter wanted to be better than Mr. Stark. By being smarter, stronger, being a better hero. He would never forget that talk on the rooftop over the bay, the Statue of Liberty in the background after he helped Peter save that ferry. Mr. Stark wanted Peter to be better than him as a hero. But this kid was no hero. He was heinous, murderous, Bakugou Katsuki, hero in Gotham training. The idea made him sick to his stomach. He doesn't deserve the right. He glowered in his native tongue, low and darkly, taking a deep breath as he pondered how the hell this school for heroes would let some thug into their ranks. He ignored the look Tsuyu was giving him. Shoto noticed Parker's countenance darken even from behind all the students. Was he close to Midoriya, or did he have a grudge against Bakugou? He didn't seem very confrontational, and had tried to dispel all manner of conflict from before. The one exception was when he stopped Bakugou after the ball throw, only for Aizawa to interfere. On the screen, medical bots were carrying Izuku away, and All Might was escorting the other three students. Uraraka looked exhausted, Bakugou looked miserable, and Lita looked depressed. That is, until he was told that he was the MVP of the battle. Peter was still getting used to the idea that a human chin could actually hit the floor. I wonder why. Would anyone like to answer? All Might asked. Shoto rolled his eyes. Uraraka was clearly the MVP. She saw an opportunity and took it, and won the day. Ida was acting like a loon and couldn't work with Bakugou, who clearly was a lone wolf motivated by a grudge. It was because Uraraka's attack was dangerous. Yaoyorozu piped in. Her flying debris might have hit the bomb and detonated it. She had a point, Shoto supposed. Still, Parker cut in. Bakugou should have been defending the bomb. If Ida had gone down on offense, his speed and power would have made it nigh impossible for Uraraka and Midoriya to counterattack. He crossed his arms. A fine point indeed, Parker-san. Yaoyorozu concluded with a nod, hands on her hips. We have to work from the bottom up and support each other, otherwise we will never be top heroes. Yeah, I guess so. Parker finished as he took a deep breath. So, Mr. All Might, we gonna continue or what? And Izuku's gonna be okay, right? Rest assured, young Parker. He is being looked at in the infirmary as we speak. Ah yes, the number one hero jogged over and grabbed the hero and villain ball boxes. Let us move on to the next trial. The next battle will be in another building. At his words, the camera feeds changed to a whole new location. And next up is, he muttered, rummaging around, pulling out two balls. Hero Ball B and Villain Ball C. Team B will be the heroes, and Team C the villains, All Might declared. Shoto narrowed his eyes as Parker perked up, gazing at Yaoyorozu, who glanced back at him. Woo. Recommended on recommended violence. Kaminari whooped. It's more than that, this is a clash of the top 10. Yaoyorozu and Parker are literally 1 and 2, with Todoroki on their heels and Shoji is no slouch. Added Kirishima. Can't wait to see how you perform, Ace. A clash of the titans, of the elites. Takoyami muttered darkly. Anyone get the feeling we may lose another building? Jiru asked aloud. Hey, we're gonna be working together. Shoji Mizo walked towards him, one of his arms speaking. So, we're against the top 2 of the Class A. That we are. Shoto finished, glancing at Parker as he talked with his teammate. The dark air that hung over him was gone, and his old awkwardness had returned as he and Yaoyorozu discussed strategy. He and her had their recommended exams in private rooms. His only knowledge of her quirk is from the Aizawa's test. But, he knows what Parker can do. He only showed his ice ability during that test. But he's seen Parker in action, along with his suit. Peterparker might well be the strongest amongst them, maybe even the fastest in reflexes, and his gear better than anything he's seen. Nonetheless, he was another tower to climb, a trial to overcome. If Shoto was to become a hero like the beaming symbol of peace, he's overcome using only his ice. He will do so again. Let's go and plan. We'll finish his quick. Shoto turned towards his taller comrade, who nodded and they followed. He ignored the cheers and excited chittering of his peers. You may have me beat in many ways, but I will defeat you to become the top hero, Todoroki Shoto thought as he remembered his oath. And this is just another step for me to take. Using only my ice, you will be that stepping stone, Peterparker. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.